Welcome to Aaron Plays. This will be episode 5 of the playthrough of Austerlitz by Hexasim, with myself as the French and Mark as the coalition. We've just completed the 7 a.m. turn, so we're about to go through the sequence of play for the 8 a.m., which is the first proper turn where we've got to follow the full sequence of play normally. So we will go through that in some fair detail. So the first thing we do is check to see, it's called the order phase. But I think we're not at no orders phase or order changes by commander. So we can't change any orders throughout this turn. So no order phase.
Oh, Walter's fault. Walter, the designer, has forbidden it. It's forbidden in this turn. Okay. Also, the fog is starting to lift. Our visual range is now 3 hexes instead of 2. Okay. So we can see slightly further, and our artillery will be able to play much more of a role, I think.
Start joining in. All right, then we have first player determination. Each side makes a die roll. The side obtaining the lowest die roll decides which side will start with the first activation. In case of a tie, re-roll. Now, starting at 9 a.m., I will get a -2 modifier to this roll, but I'm not getting it this turn.
Napoleon.
Yeah. It's a big DR, so that stands for 2 dice. So let me roll 2 dice.
You get an 8.
Well, it's the lowest. So,
I get an 8.
Okay, so that's a tie. We roll again. Go on then, get 3. So the French will, well, in this system, it's the lower number.
Yeah, I forgot to activate my biased vassal dice rolling system that I wrote.
So the side obtaining the lowest die roll, so that's the French, decides which side will start with the first activation. That'll be the French having the first activation. Okay.
You have the initiative.
And the first person I'm going to activate, because now I choose a formation that I wish to activate, and I wish to activate Soult.
Ah, okay.
Okay, well, he's getting a bit of a hammering over here. So Soult, who I'm now going to reveal, who was masked, is sitting here in the junction of the 2 streams. Yeah. I have to roll 9 or below to be able to activate him. I roll a 6. So he is now activated. At which point, I'm going to reveal his core. So I'm going to pause the video. As me and Mark have discussed, that was probably the most boring part, was actually us deploying troops on the map. I'm going to deploy his troops and then restart. Okay, so I've set up Soult with his units.
There's far too many of them.
Far too many. It's a big core. Okay. And I say he's won his activation, so he's good to go now.
So let's have a look. What have you got? So behind the river is where you placed them all, isn't it? So you've got a couple of maximized infantry stacks there. Lots of infantry columns with support from light troops, cavalry, kept your artillery in the rear, some more cavalry reserve in the rear. Okay.
Okay, so now that he's activated, I have my offensive fire segment. So remembering that I've got troops in and around Cobblebit.
Yes, already in action, yeah.
Already in action, they will now engage in some musketry.
Yep.
So I'm going to start with this guy here, targeting this one. So there's a -1 for the shot because you're in the village there.
+1.
Sorry, +1. Yeah, +1. I roll a 4, which becomes a 5. I think that might be a morale check. It is. It's
not a morale check, it's jamming. what that is.
Jamie, watch out.
Yep, morale check. So my morale is 8. At least it's a fairly decent morale unit. So let me just roll that now. Oh, 2.
Happy.
So they've passed.
At that point, I place a fire marker, which you can just see around the edges of the counter. The purpose of this, if I actually move my units away, is it shows that the unit's fired and it costs 3 movement points to leave. As I spent time firing, take them, if I wanted to leave there, it would cost them 3 movement points to leave that hex. However, units can
sorry, go ahead.
Units can always move at least 1 hex if it's into terrain that they're allowed to go into. You're about to say, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's a great mechanism that Walter's introduced, the game designer. I really like that.
That it takes time to fire, yes.
Mm.
Okay, so now this unit is firing on this big formation here. I don't think there's any modifiers for terrain, no. So I need a 5 or less. That's a QFT. Good shooting, lads.
Here comes the morale check. I need a 7 or less to pass. So I retreat 1 hex.
Or you can lose a step and remain.
Or I can lose a step and remain, yeah. But I'm going to look after my forces, so we're going to withdraw 1 hex. So let's see. We're going to withdraw to where that Reg Art B artillery is. So let me just put the artillery back on the top. We haven't broken the stacking limitations there. So you actually pushed some of these Russians back.
And then this unit will fire on these boys on top of the slopes. There's a +1 modifier. So 4 or less to score a hit. No, not this time.
Some good shooting.
Right. Everything else is out of range. So now the next step is my movement phase.
Mm-hmm.
My aim with this is I want to take on these guns and start encroaching in on the flank here. And at the same time, as long as my orders are to go to Pratt's, so as long as I am fulfilling that I'm moving closer to Pratt's than where I started. So I've got a few units over here, which are also part of Soult's Corps. But I believe there's a flag under there. Yeah. Well, if he wants to come and grab the flag, he's more than welcome to. Okay. So 1, 2. Now,
at which point
your 3C becomes visible.
The 3C becomes visible. And so let me make that counter visible. It's the 3rd column.
It is the 3rd column. Okay.
Which means what we could really do is pause while they get deployed.
Okay, well, we'll pause then. Okay, so
we've got the 3rd column set up.
Now, if anyone can pronounce that name, please put it in the comments section. How you
mean the name of the commander?
The commander, yes. PRZ BYZEW. Sorry, BYSZEW.
I think it's Percepsev. Peter will call him. So he's set up his column even. It's not as big as Soult's.
Or Soult's, no.
I like the runs. But what he has been able to do is occupy some wooded terrain just before the town of Pratsa. Set up a couple of...
I would have a slight challenge on 2 of your stacks there, though. That's this stack.
1, 2, 3.
And that stack. Are they closer to your line of communications than the leader.
Oh, hang on. You've got a point because firstly, I think the Reg Art C stack
that one
passes the rule. That passes the rule of not being closer than the original deployed units to the enemy that spotted them. But the Reg Art B stack, if you want to do a little highlighter, has broken the deployment rule there. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. But then also there's a deployment rule of being closer to your line of communications than the lead unit.
Right.
Those break that rule, I think.
Yeah. So what we'll do, I'll have a quick shuffle round here.
Are the French being pedantic? Absolutely.
So they're going to be 1 hex further away from the French than the original unit that was spotted. So Reg Art B and Reg Art C, both of those are fine. Reg Art D is fine, except he's sat by himself in the woods, so I'm going to give him some light infantry cover. And just checking stacking. Yeah, it's all good. There we go.
Just as a quick mention of stacking, if we were actually playing this face-to-face with each other, you can actually only visually look at the top lead unit in a stack, which is the first infantry or cavalry unit in the stack. However, unfortunately, with the Vassal module, as soon as my mouse moves over their stack, I can see everything.
Yeah, we can't replicate that, can we? That would make things much more interesting, wouldn't it?
Anyway, back to the 14th line's movement. It's only spent 2 movement points so far. So it will now go 3 to there. And then 4 to there.
At which point, I've got to do the hex. In the hex adjacent to them are 2 foot batteries who have been caught. Picture this narrative. A French column has appeared out of the fog on their flank. They were in reserve for the attack on the town. And suddenly a French column appears out of the fog. These 2 foot batteries have a small regiment of cavalry with them. Now the cavalry can actually retreat before combat. And how that works is if an enemy infantry unit moves adjacent to a friendly cavalry unit, the cavalry can move out of the way effectively. Now, because that cavalry unit is so small, with only 3 steps, we can more or less bank on the fact that Soult is going to attack with a lot more infantry than just the 1 regiment he's moved up so far. So those foot batteries are going to end up, they might do some damage to the enemy, but they're probably not going to survive this. So we're going to withdraw the cavalry regiment out of the way. And I'm just seeing how many. Is
that done as soon as I move next to them, or is it done when I declare the assault?
It says if a unit or stack without cavalry moves adjacent, the decision is taken immediately when the stack moves adjacent.
Fair enough. But you've been pontificating for like the last 5 minutes. It's not immediately then, is it?
Pardon?
You've been quoting rules for the last 5 minutes, so it's not immediate.
it's after you've read the rule, it says here in brackets and parentheses. It says you must retreat 2 hexes, apply the normal retreat rules, but for 2 hexes instead of 1. So let me just check that, because they might not be able to retreat. Is it worth a pause?
Okay. Any rules checks here that got to go in a bit of depth, we'll pause. Right. After a quick check of the rules and scurrying through the books, we've determined that the cavalry in that hex cannot retreat. Because of a key word. And here it is. If a unit stacked without cavalry moves adjacent to a stack containing only non-mounted cavalry or horse artillery units, well, that's a cavalry unit with foot batteries. So the option to retreat before combat is not there.
Yeah, Walter's what the designer's intent there is he's forcing that cavalry unit is going to stay and defend the batteries. It's going to sacrifice themselves, basically. So that's what we need to do.
Right, so continuing the Soult's movement, I've managed one piece so far. So it's
well done.
1, 2, 3. It's still projecting zone of control, so I can't go 4 to there. Okay. Right. These boys stacked with the marshal.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of light infantry there. I've got 5 movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can't get any further. 3, 4 to there. These ones go 1, 2, 3, 4 to here. And 8. 7. 8 in the lead. All right, 2, 8, 16 plus 7. 22. You have a total of 30 stacked in a hex. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. They've started on the road, so they'll continue on the road. That gets a 5 into there.
I'm not sure if you can use road movement when you end your move adjacent to the enemy. No entry into an enemy zone of control, it says.
Okay. Fair enough. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 using the trail. Let's do that. That's the 43rd line. Anyone else with a 5 movement? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that is the maximum I'm going to be able to get into actually combat this turn. So the rest
is positioning for next turn.
2, 3, 4, stay along the trail. 5, and those 2 will stay there. I think I'm going to have the marshal himself lead that assault on those Russian.
Goodness me.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. What's the cost for crossing the stream? Let's have a look. Crossing the
+2 for infantry to cross. +2.
Okay, so that's 3 to there. One, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I better leave some space for your retreat when I push you back. He's just ignoring me, folks, isn't he? Look, nothing. No response to that.
I'm forming a bridgehead, but yeah, got to create some gaps somewhere. So, right, some cavalry then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not quite sure what that was, but I'm just going to nod benignly.
That was me making a funny noise.
1, 2, 3, 4. Now, here's a question. Considering we've been playing the other system.
Yeah, you're in open order in the town. That's what I'm thinking. You're not in open order at all. But anyway, go ahead. What's your question, Aaron?
Stacking. Is stacking relevant all the way through the turn or only at the end of the turn?
No, you're not allowed to overstack at any moment during the turn.
Okay. Right. So moving one of these regiments at a time then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Extra movement point for the trail. One at a time. Steady as you go, boys.
Oh, they've gone that way, have they?
And the batteries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then these 2 units from Austerlitz. 1, 2, 3. The cavalry's in the way now. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go down there.
Oh.
What's K?
Kutuzov.
Is that actually Mr. Kutuzov sitting on his horse on his own right in the front of the whole of the army?
Well, he's on a scouting mission, you see. Let me unmask.
Yeah.
No.
Is he not doing a Canute maneuver?
I'll just delete it.
Okay. Now, do I want to move any of these boys in the town? Now, zones of control do not project into a town, so I could move this unit to here if I so wished.
Mm-hmm.
But I think actually what maneuver I will do is move this to under here.
Strength in numbers.
Aye, strength in numbers 9 plus 8, 17 to 9. Yes. Okay, so that is Soult's move. Now, the next step is for me to declare melees. So I'll point the arrows correctly.
Mm-hmm. While you're doing that, Langeron realizes he's trapped between 2 opposing French divisions. He's going to have his work cut out now.
Right. So that's my melee declaration.
Yeah.
We now have defensive fire.
We do. Now, thinking back to our Waterloo escapades and Quatre Bras, etc., when you've got 2 batteries in a single hex, I believe they can actually split the fire, but they receive negative.
They do. They will receive a negative -1 to the shot.
No.
A +1 to the shot because of the
+1 for splitting the fire. But do they still receive the -1 for the target being adjacent?
Yes. So you get +1 for split fire and -1 for being adjacent. I'm just looking to see if I can find the rules on split fire, see if there's anything else that applies to it.
Yeah, look at this. We've got the 14th line, the 10th light, and well, two battalions of the 14th line coming in, and the 10th light. It's not looking good. But because we've got 2 batteries of Russian artillery there, we can split the fire. You know, you can't usually do that with just a solitary battery. You're stuck at, you just fire at one target. So there's a slight negative modifier for splitting your fire, but you can hit both at the same time. So I've got a decision to make here. Yeah. Do I concentrate my fire on the 2 French battalions and try to push them back? Or do I split it? Now, even if I push those 2 strong battalions, they're actually regiments, back, and there's 1 left, he's still a very high quality unit. I'm going to split my fire and go for 2 separate attacks. That's what I'm going to do. These 2 batteries are.
Okay. Which one are you resolving first?
Well, I'll do the northern one first against your 2 regiments.
Okay.
So it's essentially a 0 DRM, isn't it?
It is.
So here we go, watching the vassal dice. It's a 3.
You lucky bastard.
Yes.
It's a QFT2 and a step. Okay, so the QFT is done first. My morale there is 9. It's a QFT2. So therefore my morale drops to 7. And I roll a 7, so they stand.
Damn.
Flip the unit. And I'm going to change the stacking order there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't push them back. I was hoping to push them back, but with a morale of 9, it's... Yeah.
And then your other shot?
The other shot against the solitary regiment from the 14th line is a 5. That's good.
Can't complain of your die rolls, can you?
No, I can't. QFT plus 1.
And a step. So
yeah.
Coming against these guns has been expensive. Right, QFT is a straight 8. They shrug it off and are still incoming. But they're reduced. Okay. One other defensive fire shot. Oh, let me pause. Sorry, I had a call come in, so we'll continue now. So yeah, you got one more defensive fire shot with the Perm B on the on Soult.
Yes, and let me just have a look at the terrain. You're just in the clear. So if there's no DRMs on this one, it's a straight shot. I need a 5 or less. And I get a 5. It's
That's
a QFT.
Okay, so the lead unit's 8 and Soult gives them a bonus, so their morale is 9.
Not going to do much.
Oh, they're incoming still. Okay, so that's defensive fire done. We're now into the melee step.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to start with the attack led by the Marshal himself. So we count up odds. So I've got 8 plus 8 is 16, plus 7 is 23 to 18. So that is going to be 1-to-1. No shift for the odds. However, the morale is 8, plus 1 for Soult is 9 versus 6. So that is going to subtract 3 from the actual die roll.
Yeah, the quality of the troops makes a tremendous difference in this game.
So it's a net -3 to the dice. I rolled an 8, which becomes a 5 on the melee table, which is a 2-1. So their morale now drops to 5 while he does this check.
Oh, it's not looking good. Are you ready?
A 7. Okay, so their morale's 5, so it's 2 over. So they must retreat. And if it had been 3 over, they would have routed. So an 8 would have caused a rout. So where do they retreat to? If it fails by 2 or less, the stack must retreat 1 hex unless the lead unit decides to take an additional step loss. So you can stay there and take a step loss if you wish.
That's one option. Now, under the retreat rules, I've got to retreat. I'm getting confused between this and Vive l'Empereur, which we've been playing recently. Can they see they could actually retreat into the village because you don't exert the zone of control into it. But I'm not sure if they're allowed to retreat into the village, because even though that's moving away from their attackers, they're moving closer to other French units, and they're not moving towards their line of communication.
All right. Okay. So retreats are done priority towards a unit supply hex. There is no available hex with enough stacking capacity. The retreating unit can move further until a legal hex is reached. Retreating stacks retreats as 1 and cannot split. There are no available paths for the retreating stack. It is destroyed. So infantry, foot artillery, and leaders cannot retreat into an enemy zone of control.
Cavalry, but can they move into the village here? Because I'm not in your zone of control. I've got to keep moving because I've not retreated towards my line of communication. And then they'd go into there, but I'm still not moving toward my line of communication. And then they'd have to go into there. And I don't go through any of your zones of control. I don't break any stacking limits. I think that is the only legal move I can do. Do you see any issues with that?
I see loads of issues with that.
Okay. Read out the thing again for me. The retreat rule.
So retreat is mandatory when it is a result of fire melee combat, and the lead unit adjacent to an enemy combat unit misses a QFT by 2 or less. So that's yes. In this case, all units in the hex must retreat 1 hex unless you lose 1 additional step. Okay. Note that...
It's not 1 hex. Okay.
Retreat 1 hex.
Yeah.
Note that if a fire or melee combat would have eliminated the lead unit, this additional step penalty must be taken by another unit in the stack. Blah, blah. Right. Retreats are done in priority towards the unit's supply hex.
Yeah.
If there is no available hex with enough stacking capacity, retreating stack can move further until a legal hex is reached.
Yeah. Retreating
stack retreats as 1 and cannot split. So that's a...
What's the rule about line of... Do I have to... I didn't hear anything there about moving back towards my line of communications.
Retreats are done in priority towards the unit supply.
In priority, that's all. So in that case, the line of communication head, the only one that's free is there, but they can't move there because that's not retreating away from you. So they'd have to go back into the village. If it's just a priority and not mandatory, that's what I guess would have to happen. The 1 hex retreat is done.
And that's as far as they go.
And that's as far as they go. What I mistook was that I've got what I'd heard mistakenly, and I did that roundabout march, was that I've got to be retreating toward my line of communication, but it's not mandatory, is it?
It's not mandatory. If you can, you must, but you're not forced to.
Right.
If there are other paths available. I mean, technically, you could have retreated to there.
Right. I'll keep it
to adjust the stacking order in that hex.
Say again, Aaron. To reduce the stacking.
Well, no, you're within stacking limits, but you might want to change the lead unit. That's what I'm hinting at.
Thanks.
Now, as an advance after combat, I am not forced to here because they're infantry. But if I do advance after combat, only one unit can advance.
Which might not be wise.
Which might not be wise, no. Okay, moving over to this assault on the artillery. The artillery actually contribute 0 strength to this fight.
Oh, mind you, they did the work, didn't they? They're going to have to pay the price now.
Okay, so I've got 7 plus 4 is 11, plus another 4 is 15.
Yeah.
That's 5-1 odds. -5.
It is, and you've got 7 quality, and I've got 8, so that gives me a +1 back.
Yeah. Now, your cavalry defending, are you classed as... I know there's a few little subtleties here with the cavalry. When does fatigue and such forth come into it? Is that if you already started adjacent to one of my units?
Yes. If cavalry is adjacent to an enemy unit at the beginning of the turn and then gets charged, it's...
All right, I was just trying to grab any modifier I could think of.
I don't blame you, mate. Yeah, I would.
All right, so that's -4.
-4.
9 becomes a 5 again. That's a QFT 1.
It comes down to a dice roll. So the quality of the cavalry is 8, reduced to 7. And they make it. A 7. I didn't think they'd survive that.
Well, that's what happens when you roll 2 9s in combat, you see.
Well, no, it was a good attack, mate. Can't fault you for that. Fantastic attack. Out of the fog, French columns come in.
And do nothing.
Totally unprepared. I've been punished for it. I was just lucky with the dice rolls, and you were unlucky on some of them. But you know, it'll change next combat turn, as it usually does.
Right. Okay. So that ends Soult's activation. So I'm just going to remove all those moved. Okay. I'm going to call it on this episode. We'll do another one in a moment. So if you enjoyed what you've seen, been watching, please click the like and subscribe if not done so.
A lot of people have. To be fair to you, Aaron, I'm sorry to overtalk you right at the end of your speech at the end of the show, but we've seen your subscribers and your viewers rocketing over the last couple of weeks. You've been doing a fantastic job, mate.
Thank you.
And now you've lost your floor.
Now I've lost the floor. Well done. I need to about Soult as activated.
Yeah.
So I'll start that all again. Or do you want to say anything more before I end the episode?
I think I've said enough. I'm not going to give you even more of a bigger head.
So if you enjoy what you are watching, please click the like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Any comments much appreciated. Till next time.